Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's episode. The title is Employed by Greater Lights Beyond the Horizon. I would like to speak about the calling of the species and how, right now, what we have control over is most immediately our own individual activity. When I say employed by greater lights beyond the horizon, I wondered about it. I write different narratives in regard. Some of them are focused on the past, some of them focused on the future. When I think about the future, I think about extraterrestrial, or you can say actual alien immigration. A point in time where human beings, let us say after extraterrestrial contact or something like that in the future, aliens are living on our planet and we're living on their planet. What does that mean? That means the archetype of the extraterrestrial has become grounded to the individual human being. Now, what does that imply? That implies that if we have gone to an extraterrestrial planet to live there, you gotta work, right? Let's say this extraterrestrial planet has the concept of work, and you're like in some, I don't know, extraterrestrial patent office doing work or something, you know? My point is that we would be hired or employed for activities that surpass the human framework. You know, right now, 22 players, like when, for example, I'm thinking of soccer. The players wear different jerseys, and we celebrate. And I find, when are these jerseys going to be galactic? When are people going to associate, relate with the stars, with constellations? Eventually it has to enter the cultural program somehow, you know? Right now, it has entered, if you look at all the cultural programs of humanity, the notion of the extraterrestrial has entered entertainment. We entertain ourselves with the idea, but aside from that, we feel it's empty here. In philosophy, it's called Fermi's paradox. Pretty much, Fermi was this dude, this philosopher. He looked at the sky and he saw it's empty, and he's like, "Where are the aliens? Can somebody tell me, please, where are they?" And so that was the paradox, that the universe is so ancient, yet we are the only ones around. That means I feel evolutionary biologists, they are fascinated by how much time it took for evolution to take place. But I think in the future, evolutionary scientists, biologists will be wonder about why has there been not as much done, you know? There is something strange. I mean, when I look at the way we enter this life, it is not completely in accordance to our free will, because the free will that we're acquainted with is in the conscious waking state. That means, I don't know. I mean, I've personally managed to pay attention to how I am a self in a dream state, but in deep sleep, I could tell you there's nothing. There's states of mind where there is no free will. It's just movement. I mean, sure, you can say you have free will in a river, but you're still getting pulled by the river where it's going. I mean, you can choose if you flow with the river or against the river, but nature has this built-in intelligence into it, you know? I wonder about it. Sometimes I feel the reason the reason we haven't had extraterrestrial contact from advanced alien civilizations is because they're looking at us and being like, these creatures, these members of the human species are still fighting over what is it, color class creed. They're fighting over how they look. Like, it's so low level when it comes to cosmic events. It's like we're ants that haven't even brought our head out of under this rock we've been living in for a while, or living on for a while. There is so much room to do new stuff on this planet that sometimes I'm shocked how the old stuff has been able to repeat. I honestly think about this. I think about it maybe now in 2020, nobody cares. People look at the sky and they're like, okay, it's blue and white, that's enough. You know? Like, I don't know how many people actually wonder if you were suddenly like a math equation plus 1,000 years was added now, I would find that the person would see that the way we have contained the human idea for the human being is limited. There is something, I believe it was proposed by David Chalmers, if I'm correct. Let me double check this, guys. I don't know if it was proposed by David Chalmers or David Chalmers commented on it. If I remember correctly, I think he suggested it. Okay, guys. So the hard problem of consciousness, it was coined by David Chalmers. I feel I was correct on that. So pretty much it says the hard problem of consciousness is the problem of explaining why any physical state is conscious rather than non-conscious. It is the problem of explaining why there is something it is like for a subject in conscious experience, why conscious mental states light up and directly appear to the subject. I'm going to tell you it from another way, from another angle. You can say right now the person is conscious of outside of their body more than the inside their body. Inside the body, things are happening involuntarily. The person is not looking at it. You don't physically see your heart to have a second opinion. It's just involuntarily happening. So we notice that in nature, a lot of things are naturally happening, but some things are not just naturally happening, they're also in the domain of consciousness. What does that mean? That means it's like wondering, why am I aware of outside of my body but not inside of it? It's pretty much wondering why we are conscious of pain. We could have totally been designed in a way where we could have felt pain, also made decisions to work with it, but it's like, why are we conscious of it? Could you in the future reach a point where you're not conscious of pain? You can change your state of mind to not even experience pain at all, regardless of a drug or whatever. Of course, in this show Rick and Morty, there was this episode where I don't know why this scene stuck out to me, but I felt it was kind of unique. Rick is pretty much this genius scientist, and he's fighting, and he gets pushed. He gets actually thrown very hard, and he tells his spine to activate morphine for him to not see the pain, as if he's thought to a point where if there is pain, there is also something, an antidote to pain, but it's not technically an antidote. It's a way of shifting the conscious attention away from or to its phenomenology. Consciousness is something everybody should be reporting. Every human being alive should be reporting with a book or something to the advanced civilization, suggesting this idea of how their inner realms has moved to them. Do you know what that means? That means imagine there was this website where people were honestly sharing their inner realms. Imagine this was like a very massive, like global project, right? And then we would suddenly see different people all around the world have started having similar dreams or similar inner experiences, you know? I'm just saying it's like we're just branding imagination, and not studying it. We're just saying stuff is here and that's it and enough, no more questions. And those questions are the essence of philosophy. That means I don't understand how philosophy teachers in universities are walking without being offended. And of course, there is different kinds of philosophy. Right now, what's happened is that analytical philosophers, I feel, have dominated. They have won the war between the continental philosophers. The analytical philosophers have won for now. And it's not that it's a war in between it, but I feel it's going to encourage more philosophers if we perceive it that way. Because there has been attention to the object first, or the subject. When I wonder about what an object is, I know it. I've seen it. I've seen objects. I am familiar. When I think about what a subject is, it's not something I can touch. Have you noticed? A subject is made of the senses, but it is not the senses. The most immediate thing we know is that we're conscious. Now, this consciousness has content, and people tend to pretty much wake up, move, And as they move, probabilities arise. Out of the probabilities, as there is a decision, similar to the person thinking of what am I going to eat for breakfast, thinking of different types of breakfast, that means that a choice is made. And what tends to happen, if I would say, as long as the sun is up, like till half the day, if you wake up in the morning and let's say you're sleeping this right, till half the day, you're going to notice your inner realms keep adding dimensions. That means I could tell you, I mean, I have attempted it at times to think of probabilities inside my probabilities. What it means is it's trying to remember like one thing endlessly branching, or a branch endlessly branching out, and then those branches branching out and those branches branching out. I will tell you very honestly, the human species doesn't know what kind of intelligence it has. Our intelligence is way multidimensional than the type of civilization we've made. So now let's go for a sci-fi walk and to try to wonder that if we had, let's say you were an employee at an interstellar airport, what would be very casual if we were to wonder about if we were employed by a galactic agency? You know, people are looking for work. You know, when they go to work, they are not the company owner, they're just the employee, you know? So we can say, imagine there's galactic institutions one day and people are similarly going to work. Like, I'm just saying, like, what we think is space flight and our minds are getting blown, I would say in 1,000 years, it would be very casual. Do you know that means imagine it takes like 20 minutes to get from Earth to, let's say, Mars. And imagine like children in the future are like, oh God, 20 minutes, how long is this trip? And little do they know how the species was fascinated by every stride being larger and larger and larger. I feel whoever you are, wherever you are, at some point in this life, your great work requires to begin. Now, what is the great work? What is the implication of it? Why should you even be working here? Pretty much the idea is we perceive human beings as neurons. We design our civilization like a brain, like exactly, you know, in the image of the human body. I mean, honestly, what can be said? Eventually, galactic archetypes will find us. There's this constant urge in metaphysics to go towards oneness and effortlessness. But the strange thing is, all that we can do with our biological body is use it. You know, for me, this life comes down to you are a technology. How do you use this technology that you are? You know, what if we technically being employed by other human beings, a person is employed by a phenomena from the planet, so technically the planet is employing itself. I mean, all that the individual can do is build a database and archive of everything it's experienced and endlessly attempt new modalities. That's as far as individual life goes, you know. Shri Nisargadatta Maharaj said, diversity without separateness is the ultimate the mind can touch. So you feel unique, but you have a unified ability. What that means is you feel like an advanced individual human being, but you're also part of an advanced civilization that is very unified. You know? That means the neurons can argue, cannot do their work, but the brain is the brain. The brain continues on. And that's the thing, we don't have that now. People, they care for their children, but they don't care for their great grandchildren. People are caring for how they perform more, you can say, than actually what we're building here. I feel we should treat ourselves as castaway or just creatures on a galactic island, on an island in the galaxy. Now, what the tools that we find are all the ways knowledge has been classified, has been divided, branched out. That means it's been sometimes hard for me to tell if the dictionary is a work of art or it is an attempt at sculpting truth. Because I realize a person can argue till the void. That means if you want to see if something is right and wrong, there's endless ways for you to see the right and wrong of something. A person may say a sentence that is wrong now to the status quo, but 1,000 years the person could communicate something similar. You know, let's say in 100 years they can communicate something similar, and it's like it no longer it's going to be that effect. You see, people change, the world changes. We are surfing through manifestation as an attention. Now, this attention, if it chooses to entertain galactic archetypes, if it chooses to wonder about how the galactic imagery can connect, it technically means we need new mythology. That's what's missing in modern times. Ambition, real ambition, not artificial ambition to fit in to a system that didn't work properly, that wasn't fit from the beginning. You know, the point is, there has to be some human beings have to just design a prototype of a better civilization. 50% of the problem is a design issue. The whole design needs to update, in my opinion. And 50%, the individual human beings have to look at life and find some level of commonality that something bigger can happen, a bigger project can happen. Let us think of any project attempted to be a projection. And let us say a giant, the bigger the project becomes, the more projectors it requires. The more people it requires projecting life force into um, pretty much something coming alive. What it is pretty much every generation, every person, I feel, the advanced communicator, quickly plants the proper seeds for the future generation, then plays their role. Everybody is given a role, by the way. What does that mean, a role? That means it's like you're thrown somewhere. You open your eyes, um, different in location than anybody else. Can you imagine the day in the future when mankind has the technology to walk over clouds? And from the clouds, we look at human beings on Earth. We would literally have fulfilled our mythology. And that's the incredible thing. We're not just trying to surpass the past, we are trying to advance it. I mean, what can man expect from a universal system? We have tried to know it. We can't. That means if we say the purpose of life is only education and knowledge, that doesn't make sense because it can never be complete. You can never, believe it or not, know enough. Like there's always more. The more you know, the more complex and deeper dimensions the problems get. The way I was fascinated by philosophy was it was as if like every human being, we are all soldiers on the battlefields of temporary consciousness. And so what it was that it's like mankind doesn't have like a physical war. You can say now there is the language wars, where we are fighting over our right to not be a thought. So I would say philosophy is like seeing how other people, pretty much for me, it was like seeing how other people on this same battlefield that I'm currently on in the space-time continuum, how others pretty much had seen the room before. You know, there are some people who they need teachers. And there's some people who realize the teacher is only required just to get the teaching. Once the person gets the teaching, that teacher is no longer necessary. Or you can say after our civilization goes through a phase of learning from how messed up and animalistic and chaotic we could be, we would be like, all right, let's stop it here. I would tell you, there is the art of conversation, the art of rhetoric, I would say, the spirit of rhetoric in conversation, it has been lost. People should practice being minds around each other. We have built a society that is endlessly stimulating us to, in some sense, focus on being more just pure body. You see, because the more you're a body, you just have to pretty much clothe, and it's like the more you're an object, the more your desires are objective. So I could tell you, if we said that a civilization or a species in its evolution and its civilization, it goes from a very, considering itself an evolutionary leap from individual conscious object into becoming a collective, let us say, conscious subject. So it's like, as we're becoming, let's say we're evolving from now being bodies that have minds to then being minds that have bodies, okay? And as this phase, as this evolution is happening, behaviorally, even from a stoic angle, people will want less objects. They will want more subjects. Right now, believe it or not, I live a minimalistic life. But my inner realms, there's like, as if I was a king demanding access to a library. It's all here, I'm telling you. A lot of people suffer because the psychology of being carried is easier than actually walking yourself. As a mind, the speed is very, very, like the mind is, I could tell you, instantaneous. As a mind, everybody is a master, I would say, attention shifter. The human attention moves in so many ways, perceives so many things. And throughout all this processing of all this sensory perception, something moves that already considers it is something. One can say, if life is a simulation, it appears as a narrative, then the ways out of the simulation is either asking who the character is, this is the yogic path of who am I, either asking what the world is, this is the modern secular path, the, I would say, Western Enlightenment, or wondering who's telling the story. These three angles, once uh, truly considered, you are a thought as long as you need to be. Once the work is done, the being gets released. You know, right now, we have to still practice being compassionate to objects, to other objective phenomena. Literally, like, we have to be compassionate to the material realm. But after we graduate from that, that becomes pretty basic. Then it becomes having compassion and honor for an idea. This doesn't mean worship. This means honor. That means you see the beauty in something and you can let that be, and you are as you are. You know, just because a person sees something, it doesn't mean something has to happen for them to understand what's going on. Sometimes it's like just instant sight. You know, they say a picture, uh, I don't know, is like 1,000 words. You can say that your mind is endlessly journeying through different pictures. Your mind is an endless library if each picture is 1,000 words. You know what I mean? That means it's honestly not complex to find content to the world. The issue is that most people are looking at themselves, because a lot of, I've noticed this at least online, a lot of digital content creators, they're creating the content for themselves. They want to look a certain way, but they haven't realized that the best place to find content is the world. Literally, conceptually, even. I'll be honest, just try this, like wherever you are. Any moment naturally that happens, if you can help the moment, help it, and you'll strangely see a momentum to life. Do you know? Can you imagine in the future an extraterrestrial firing a human being, and the human being being like, "Buddy, this is my planet, even though I'm working for you," you know? And the alien's like, "Whatever, man. You don't even know how to live on your planet," you know? And so it becomes this situation where when I really think about the evolution of archetypes, it's how we choose to be people. How you choose to be a person is your life, and how you choose to see the world where that person walks in is your destiny. There is a quote from Guru Padma Baba. He says, if you want to look at, he says, if you want to know your past lives, look at your present condition. If you want to know your future lives, look at your present actions. That means the person who wants to know how they are, where they are, which is pretty much the notion of the past life. Because honestly, I'll tell you, I've heard this idea of past life. I totally noticed right off the bat the idea of reincarnation in Tibetan Buddhism. And I can tell you, for me, the issue was I couldn't understand the purpose of the past without a future. You know, there's this story. I don't know how accurate it is, but in this story, this prophet who has some sort of not a prophet from any specific religion, just it's the archetype, the idea of the prophet in the dictionary, man. Just the concept. Let's say it like this: this person who had an audience with God, with the divine, goes and suddenly finds that audience, like suddenly God is there, and the person says, "God, why have you created this small insect? Why?" And God says, "This small insect asks me the same question, why have I created you?" You see, we're not different to the insect. It's just that there isn't a species, like imagine the gap of intelligence between an insect and a human being. Imagine we were the insect and there was another being that was as bigger than us. You know, for a lot of futurists, AI is going to be that. Guys, it's raining. I gotta relocate. There's gonna be a part two to this. So thanks for listening. Part two coming. Okay, guys, I'm back. Actually, there's no need for a part two. So, to continue, we have this idea that there's a calling to the human life. In, you can say, a more shamanic context, there was the idea of a vision quest. The person would live life to a point where the story became important, their story, not their ego, not who they want to be in the future. Their current story became important. And so as they listened and went on with their moment, for example, in a sort of shamanic ceremony, the person would, in some sense, I don't know, ingest some plant and do a certain ceremonial behavior. Then the person would get a vision. And that vision would remind them of how they're alive, who they are, and whatnot. It was the remembrance, the return, or you can say revisiting the logos. Very few species have access to this, but we have access very clearly. We are conscious of the logos. That means there isn't just an invisible moving hand in economics and in religion. There is an invisible moving hand behind the face of every force we have dared to categorize and name. It's an event. Whether the person is employed by their planet, employed by other star systems, employed by the void of the universal sector, a life is being lived. It's like, when will the person become important to themselves, you know? So many people willing to walk in the shadow of their efficient selves. You know, there's this song that says, say something, I'm giving up on you. For a lot of people on the mystical path who really want to perceive something in the unknown, it becomes something like that. But when the person realizes the notion, it's more like Spinoza's God, a God that is being everything at once, you know? You know what it is? It's like different phases of life. The person requires to befriend certain forces. You know, this you could say this is like an idea that is, you can say has echoed from Druidry, where the person would go in nature, they would close their eyes, they would suddenly open their eyes as nature, and then nature is accessible to you. Then nature sees you. Do you know there is a field, there is a sort of tune that if you hit, animals behave differently. It's literally, I think, something just the attitude of the person is generating a sort of resonance, you know? Because what does the person want? What can the person want from a changing world? This is why it's like work, you know? It's like the person doesn't live in the office, but they attend it, you know? It's like the conscious waking state is pretty much the only state of mind where you can build things consciously with your hands. You can say in the dream state, the karma is so instant and so short. I mean, I've had conversations with people. Somebody once told me they had a dream where they felt it was 300 years in the dream. And I was like, yeah, that could happen. The sense of time could also be similar. You know, it's an evolutionary return to nature. We were unconscious. There was an unconscious world. Then there was an unconscious self. Then there was the conscious self. Now we are moving into the conscious world where people, you know, it's strange. It's like we know an end is coming, but imagine the end. I don't know. This may be too far fetched, but imagine there it becomes something where we create wherever in just like in different parts of the city certain heavenly fields. Okay, and what that means is it's like the human being works, does its work. Everybody should think that like when you open your eyes you're in a workstation, you know, because aside from the workstation mentality there's no purpose to the body. Pretty much you can say any kingdom must have certain things to protect and must have certain parts of the system it cares less about, which it uses as defense. What I mean by this is that eyes open, attention activates. With every flight and change of your attention, literally think about where your head is when you wake up in the morning on the bed from that exact point. Now imagine as you get up, there's a trail of all the angles your head has moved. So technically, I would say we don't realize it, but it's like We are in the body, but because it's first person view, we feel like gliding. Conscious existence is like gliding to the mind. It's like I don't have what is it called? Telekinesis. I don't have telekinesis, but I can move my hands. Technically, I do have it. You know, when I move my physical body, I can move atoms. You know, I'm technically moving elements of the periodic table. When I move my hand, I'm levitating something. You know, that person jumping in the air. There you go. Everybody can, you know, lift themselves up for a second. I don't know what it is. I feel something is missing from the development of the global future networks. I feel people are sharing information, but they're waiting. You know what it is? It's like 8 billion master musicians waiting. And they have the instruments in their hand, but they're waiting. Do you know? And it's like, imagine, you know, a friend from the future came back and was like, yo, why does everybody on this species have their instrument, have the skill and natural innate ability to play their craft or play their, what do you call it, their instrument, their DNA, to express their DNA? Why aren't they playing their instruments? And that's the thing I realized. Really, like, that's the ultimate teaching of our time. Use what you're conscious of. You know, and when there's turbulence, you have to navigate your attention. That means moments where the person feels stressed, that stress is in accordance to past references. You got to let go of who you think you were. People can change because life is changing anyway, so you can just consciously do it. You know, no longer it is time to have physical armies. The era of grand physical movement, it's coming closer and closer to an end as cyberspace comes. You can just see the future generations being designed more for being a mind, expressive mind, than in some sense being a warrior. What does that mean? That means it's like, I feel if I was to give, just like how we have like different phases in Vedic thought, like the yugas. I wouldn't compare these necessarily to the yugas, but I would say the time I was born, I feel our species was shifting from the warrior archetype to the mage archetype. From the intense biological competence to now an incredibly intense subjective geometrical competence. You know, right now our minds are moving in ways where if you literally had a time travel machine, went back into the past, people would be like, how is this guy so ahead of us in everything? You know, that means imagine there was this next level time traveler, and this time traveler had it with all the evil people in the world. So this time traveler decided to get all the evil people in different moments of history and throw them all in one place, and they all had to fight, you know. And that's the thing, you know, if anarchy is equated to freedom, then chaos will be the leader of the blind, and the blind all have let me tell you, it's like when a blind person runs, it's like there's more air. There can be more air, miscalculation of the space and whatever. That means I could totally see a person running like a. But I'm saying in regards to nature and attention, I just ask myself, is this what the human species should be doing just concluding a selfish outcome of trying to find itself. You know how many people now you ask them, what do you want to do, and they're like millionaire, millionaire, millionaire. It's like literally like it's been, the idea has been stamped on people's head. Rather than thinking of how to create value for the civilization, they're trying to think of what's the quickest way to get to the desires destined outcome image. I will tell you, that's the cool thing about life, is you got to actually find a trail you are comfortable journeying. And you should have this mentality: every trail has its chaos and order. This life is an opportunity. We are capable of, again, direction and speed. We can control where we go here, and we can, in the outer realms, and even in the inner realms. But I will say we can control where we go in the outer realms. I'm just saying, can you imagine a type of human being, the true advanced communicator, a human being that no longer sees problems and solutions? Everything is a vast field of endless moving geometry. And it has now become a choice, where we first thought we are knowers. We thought we can know knowledge. Now we have become the riders of knowledge. Now knowledge has become the stepping stone or the surfboard. And so the attention needs to activate. And different people, they live different lives. And only when life is not enough, they will wonder about their mind. That means there are some teachers, the student comes and says, can I be a student, to the teacher? And the teacher says no. And the student is like, oh, leaves, you know? And that teacher instantly knows that student didn't realize, didn't know what they were asking. Then a student comes. The student says to the teacher, I want to be a student. And the teacher says no. And the student says, I don't care, I want to know. And that's when the teacher suddenly sees there's something else driving the person to the question, to wondering about the outcome. There's a story where there's this farmer who needs help, this old farmer. And he gets two people, the sage who's also a farmer, okay? And these two people come there, and the farmer says, you guys help me, like, with the harvest. Just, I'm old, you guys do the harvest, but I'll give you a chunk of the land, each of you. So he gives them like 1/3 of the land, of his land, he divides in half. And he says each of them can have that harvest. Okay. Now the farmer, sage farmer, farmer dash sage, a farmer of sage. A farmer named Sage. Okay, anyways, this farmer is sitting there, and at the end of the day, and the farmer is looking at both of them, you know. Now, at the end of it, both of them come, and both have been honest. The first one comes and he says, "Sir, this is all the things all the work I did for you, and this is the section for mine, and I am very grateful and thank you for what you have given me." Very honest, humble, good guy. And the sage is like, "Okay, I was watching, and yes, you were working honestly." And so the second guy, the sage takes his, sorry, not the sage, the first guy takes his pile. He's like, "Nice," and he goes. The second person walks up, the second person who came to help the farmer, the sage farmer. The second person brings the harvest that the farmer had given him, and he had kind of like gotten that harvest ready, and the farmer, and he has done both of the work honestly, like same as the first one. But this guy, he also gives what the farmer gave him back to the farmer, and he says, "I have not come here to get grain from you. I have come here to hear you." From a dervish context, it would be that the person is going there to find the pearl. Because the mind, you can perceive it to having endless eyes, endless recorded moments of your own life with you looking out through your two eyes. What are your memories? But kind of like rewinding back through the camera that is this intelligence. And so when you close your eyes and wonder what is there, that means that when the person closes their eyes, there is no light entering the eyes, but the vision of sight, the vision of how you can move things instantly evoke subjective architecture. So in the story, the point of it was, you have not come here in life to just get something. You have come here to see what it's about, That means this is like an additional dimension. That means, imagine how you're living normally now, nothing is changing. Imagine everything is the same, but now you are noticing an additional dimension. There's one way of change, is that like, let's say we have civilization 1.0, we want civilization 2.0. One way is like, enough civilization 1.0, you got to turn it to civilization 2.0, rebellion, people running, like that's what we've seen in the past be done. That's not what I'm proposing. I'm proposing, instead of changing civilization 1.0, we bow and honor civilization 1.0, and we thank it for its service. But we go on somewhere else and we start building civilization 2.0. And as we start building civilization 2.0, civilization 1.0 can't ignore its sibling. And so then there is, you can say, advancement. I feel we have two hemispheres to the brain. We should have a yin-yang civilization. We should have a civilization, one side endlessly going towards the arts, and the other not letting go of tradition. Pretty much the world is going to be divided between compilers and explorers. These are the two jobs if automation takes everything. And I don't know how much people care, but science fiction is the secret. It's the grand effort, I think about who I want to be in the future, then I think, if I was an immortal being, oh my God, there is no answer. It is endless, endless change, endless change. Eyes open, eyes close, eyes open, eyes close. And in the middle of this, the soul is torn, asking why. Until the true nature, the great work is found, the skies open. and your mind has realized that it is the edge of the sky. That is the ability of consciousness. It is the light in the room, and so we go as far as we can find the wall that limits us. And I honestly was thinking, I mean, this is totally irrelevant tangent, but I was thinking if teleportation technology becomes mainstream, we should make it illegal to have teleportation from in on Earth, because people will become incredibly obese. There would be no reason to walk anymore if we have teleportation, you know? So we need to have, we need to make it illegal to teleport more than, I don't know, like 1,000 kilometers. I don't know actually how you can regulate teleporting. You see, this is the issue. Because we have been animals in the jungle, because we have the animal instinct, there may come a time where we're like, what if we went into a robotic body and we experienced consciousness without animalistic intent? Do you know the mystery of the mind? It's something where I kind of feel like the atheistic mentality, the too materialistic scientific mentality. Let me tell you, it's like you have caged your world. You have put the flashlight in a box before actually seeing what it's shining in the room. Nobody knows enough to contain this realm, whether it's the religious voice, whether it's a scientific voice, philosophical voice, poetic voice. I have heard so many voices in this life. But it is the experience of the moment that is the true revelation. That is the nature of our design. That means I thought, was it the prophet that, like, there is this true idea that the prophet had a revelation, and you can agree with that idea as a theologian. Do you know? But you would see, if something is beyond man, how can it be worshipped? What is being worshipped? It's just language, guys. Language is covering the true nature of reality. And this is why, unless fear can be let go, not realistic fear in the outer realms. In the outer realms, if there's a grizzly bear, don't act like or you're one with nature and go hug the grizzly bear. Like, you know, the aim is to make the species galactically street smart. And to liberate the archetypal position by the addition and involvement of life. You see, it's like this is nature. It's pulling. It's like a horse, that is just moving without instruction. Now, if the person becomes conscious, they look at the landscape, receive some sort of signal as an antenna to go towards, and they continue. You see, life is not just where you got to, it's in every step. I can't often some people talk about success and failure like they know. I'm not saying there isn't success and failure in the outer realms, but I'm telling you, it's like, where do you set the reference? How do you know failure is failure? How do we know success is success? Do you see it? It's like the attention. This, I could say, this is pure free will, where you realize that the laws of the chessboard are being interpreted. Everything we know, we have made it into a sound in order to communicate it, and we have forgotten that it's a thing. In today's society, people instantly point fingers as if like the mob mentality hasn't updated. The thing about reality is that either you want the system to continue or you want it to break. And people who want themselves to break, it gives them a justification to have the world break. You know? That means, I'll give you an example. It's like a young kid at a young age being pushed and not being able to push back. And years later, you know, people are like, how do you think about life in the world? And they're like, it's pushing me around, you know, and the person just wants to push back. And let me tell you, it is not worth it. I'm telling you, a lot of flames of emotional turbulence must never step out of the inner realms. That means there has been times that I have gotten angry and literally my mind has thought something, but my lips have not moved. And my mind's kind of been shouting at the person. You don't know. It's like I have this thing where I call it like, you know, inner anger, where I'm very simply, very relaxed sitting, but in my inner realms, it's like there is a massive shout. In my inner realms, I'm envisioning chaos. But in my outer realms, it has nothing to do with the outer realms. That's the magnificent thing about the mind-body dualism, you know? And that's the whole point. We just look at how we've classified the world and we advance it by updating the classification, which most likely requires us to have a new experience, create a new language for the experience that has never been given a language to, and then incorporate that and live as part of the knowledge of the culture, knowledge of the civilization's effort to get somewhere, you know? Guys, um, I wrote this thing. Let me see if I can find it. You might not believe it, but like in a couple years, I found a way to write like I could tell you endless books, you know. Anyways, let me see if I can. Okay, there we go. So this is a poetry collection I wrote a while back, 2015, 5 years ago. So I'm going to be reading for the audience. I call this like a poetry tunnel, just a, you know, part of the show, you can say. So this poem, just it's like a set of, it's like a bunch of poems and mystical hymns, you can say. So this one is, it's two books, okay? It's Glowing Madness and Starlight Sanctuaries. Actually, what I'm reading for you is from Glowing Madness. So, tragedy of the slave. Can the slave love the freedom within? Is every moment sacred before scary emotions give unnecessary images motion? Love comes from behind, just to see it was always in front. Love is the freedom of an empty mind. Remembering the avalanche of fullness in the collapse of eons in a black hole. Does light wear a watch on the wrist of darkness? Mankind has kindly given time and space a faceless face. Is the volcano jealous of the eruptions of these words? The only tragedy of the slave is not letting go of the slave. Freedom was free before it ever could be. This poem is from Starlight Sanctuaries. It's written in 2015 as well. It's called Fearless Sacrament. Trust the self that has waited so far. Consciousness cannot be disturbed by time and space in absolute awareness. The paths are visible when you are invisible. Learn from the ironsmith, for irony must be hammered hard. Is the flame that burns the hand real to the imagination? Who governs the nations of image? Ask yourself, and you shall receive from yourself. All are blessed in the sovereignty of a sincere heart. The cosmos belongs to all of us. This next poem from Starlight Sanctuaries is called Pain's Pain. Can your suffering be a mirage, raging at the thirst of the new? Yes, truth reveals herself when the moment is calmer than a rippleless pond. Some swans are great pilots when every reflection is the shape of the heart. Let the world turn your joy into the greatest surprise. O mankind, are you ready to be alive? This next poem is called Lasting Fires in the Mist. What has lasted so far? Has fire befriended the ocean in the evaporating drop? Collective consciousness is a gift for the individual. Ignorance must dissolve in the solution of the kind. Worlds are written through words. How does truth find love, a magnanimous journey into the veins of conception? Questions are bright leaders until death has turned life around to the eternal gaze. Love the traditions that have guided your mind into a playful seat. Roar, my dear lion, roar, celestially. All are advocates of divine love and sacred dance, for when the world celebrates, so does man. Lasting fires in the mist are the beginning of the profound. Are you in love with love? If you are, emptiness will reflect truth twice. For what is within is a cosmic task. For what is within is a cosmic task. I think this was the difference. Just to go on a tangent here. It's like they say the difference between the Buddha and the Bodhisattva. Okay, the Buddha realized himself, his true self. The Bodhisattva realized the true world, and the Bodhisattva was like, "Oh my God, I'm the world. So unless the world updates, what can the self do? Endlessly return, you know." Bodhisattva problems, guys. Bodhisattva problems. This next poem is called Heresy's Children from Glowing Madness. This poetry work. The other day, some rocks threw some kids on the neighbor's roof. Sorry, guys, the joke made me laugh. Not the joke, the poem made me laugh. I'm going to read it again. Heresy's children. The other day, some rocks threw some kids on the neighbor's roof. Is this some kind of joke? If it is, who has given the joker its task? The design of the mind is always worth being studied. The caterpillar may comprehend the planet like the apple, but it must never forget the wings of metamorphosis. What has freed the free? Is it by nature? Heresy might not see the same punishment in the eyes of the child. Does love care about the wounds of the past made by the future? Some sentences can be read much clearer through teleportation. Unfortunately, heresy forgot to mention even nothing exists. Cruelty must destroy itself before anything else. Remember the compassion within. The next poem is from Glowing Madness. It's called Tyrant Tears. Okay. Tyrant Tears. Did he kiss the world with her lips? Life lives on beautifully. Now what gives the choice a chosen path? Are you ready for the turn of the century in one moment? What is love as it burns the hate that does not see? What is the sermon of a drop in the ocean? How has the great sky bowed in your eyes? Who are friends if they are not here with you? Trust the loyalty of all that you are. There are moments when the pen shakes the page before my fingers. Can absolute power have bad handwriting? What is the life beneath the between? Be the dreamer that never sleeps in an awakened world. All messengers have come through one door. I thought like parents should tell their kids, at a young age, just look at their kid do something adorable and be like, sweetie, you're going to build a giant robot one day. Just give science fiction motivations to children, so they actually wonder about what can be brought into the world. You know, it's so limited. Technically, we should be a civilization where everybody is a writer. Everybody has something to share from the inner realm. There's this story of this priest. It's just an ancient story, nothing to take too seriously. There was this priest that was in this church, and beside the church, in this neighborhood, there was like some, strangely, there was some, what's the term? Like, uh, uh, like a prostitution place, you know, beside this church in this story. This, I'm just relaying the story to you guys. So what happens is there's this priest, and this priest every day living a very celibate, pure life, you know, just doing basic things, you know, not like this is the stories back in the day, you know. So this priest, however, at the end, at night, when he would come to his place to sleep, beside him there was a window of the prostitution place. And there was a woman who would come there, and this priest would suddenly notice this woman, who was a prostitute, would come and pray. She would come and pray in front of like this mirror or something, you know. So she would go and be in the most unclean, let's say, no choice kind of situation, and then she would come and she would just have her attention on, let us say, a god or whatever. So this priest, this whole time, every day he does the things, he tries to go by the book and everything, very like, you know, a robot would just say well done. You know, like it's like the priest has been doing everything. Then what happens, and every day it's the same thing. The woman on the other side of the window in the other building she would also do this, right? So the priest would come and look at this lady pray every day. At the end of it, the story goes is, and it's just a story. At the end of it, what happens is that both of them go to heaven, and they're at the pearly gates, and suddenly the priest is not allowed to go in, and then suddenly the prostitute is allowed to go into the pearly gates, you know. And the priest is like, "What is this?" He's like, "Why am I not allowed? I did everything as the book instruction booklet said. Do you know? I played the role. Do you know? I did everything. Why? Why can't I get in?" And the voice says the difference between, and she says, why did she get in? She who did so many, you know, unclean things. And the voice says, you did everything all day to come and see her. She did everything in her life to come and see the truth at the end of the day. She had her attention on the actual. Your attention was on, you felt you were, your attention was on the actual, but your attention was on the girl. Do you see what I mean? Like, so it was this point where it's not enough to just be an actor. It's like, what is this, a movie? We're all actors in a movie. It's about actually living. And this living means that you have to have a sort of self-analysis in regards to your inner realms, realizing nobody has your eyes, and learning to be content with that, because that's an advantage or a disadvantage whether you think about it in different angles. Sometimes it's like it's an advantage because that means there's new dimensions to be added to the system. Can you imagine if this was a civilization of clones? That would be so freaky. You know what I mean? Like, I'm happy that there's miscommunication sometimes, you know. Because nothing can be 100% understood. What happens is, if two people who just meet, you know, they really try to interview deeply one another, eventually they reach the edge of the edifice, I would say, that they're creating together. So what that means is, it's like, this is what I feel has been lost. It's the style of every person's own mystery. You see, the most biggest revolutionary thing I realized in my life was that my direction. If everybody is a velocity, if you think of it, they have a velocity to their life. My direction in this life and my pace, my speed in this life was not dictated by myself. It wasn't. I wasn't the pilot of, in some sense, the way it was society and everything, from feeling like how to be around a certain environment, what to say and all of this. It felt like I had a life, but in the middle, you had to act along. But the point is, after some point, you're like, okay, there isn't enough time. If we were immortal, I would be like, sure, you know, let's play along in the illusion. What is there to do as an immortal being? It's like an illusion becomes fun then. You know, but as a mortal being, priorities can instantly be noticed. That means I'll tell you, I've been like, what inspires me to even share these talks is my mortality. I feel at some point there can't be the same type of expression. So while you can do, all systems can be updated. This should be law. This should be a law, especially as the cyberspace age is dawning. If you look at the picture I've chosen, I believe this is from this show called Evangelion something. Neon Genesis Evangelion. I don't know. I haven't seen it, but I've seen the pictures around in this wallpaper site. And this picture was so incredible for me. Because if you notice, she's in outer space. She is piloting in outer space. As if it's nothing. As if there's other things on her mind. Like, what am I going to do later while she's piloting in outer space? We can get to that point. Right now, people go to space, they're like, oh my God, never thought I'd get here. Like, tears of awe. But imagine somebody gets to space and is like, okay, just like I remembered. And the person's like, how can you remember it? Imagine the first astronaut that believed in past lives. Sometimes I have perceived it as if there is, I've termed it once as solar groups, patterns of intelligence and sort of allegiances. I would say what it is the person needs to, in any situation in life, have an individual analysis and a collective analysis of whatever. That means thinking of your action from your point of view, from the point of view of your outer realms. That means for me, the more people there are in a room where I'm, let's say, there's a group conversation like these discords after the talks. It's, what it is? It's like the more people there are, the more dimensions of ways the talk can be stretched is there. It's like when you stop expecting people to understand, you just see their action. I can tell you, it's like, imagine like an extraterrestrial came down to Earth and he's like, why aren't you guys all like Sherlock Holmes 24/7 about the nature of your consciousness? And we'd be like, I don't know, we're just trying to get by, and the alien would be like, okay, I came to the wrong planet. Honestly, if aliens came down now to make contact with human beings, I'd be embarrassed. I'd be like, oh my God, we're not ready. It's like what? It's like what? We're gonna act in front of the aliens like decent non-violent species. We're gonna be like, trust us, aliens. We're a peaceful species. Let's shake hands. And the aliens like, you guys all have nuclear war, like nuclear warfare. We are aliens. Like we can scan everything on your planet. And we're like, yeah. So about that. So I'm telling you, it's like we have to advance the expression of the individual rather than setting the bar low, not having this specific view. Like, you see, it's like it's not about like how something looks. It's about the mind. It is not an object to be judged. Like, you can judge someone's appearance, but you can't judge their mind. Do you know? You can even judge certain snapshots of their mind, but if you saw every person's mind as this film that's endlessly running and it hasn't stopped, that means anybody can change. That means you call someone a fool, tomorrow they might not be a fool. There's this person who I can't pronounce his last name, Kurt Vonnegut or something, I don't know. This philosopher, I believe he was a novelist or something. You know, he was like, Hitler was his classmate. And he's like, imagine waking up and seeing your high school is running the country. Your high school class is running the country. Like, you know, it blew his mind. So what it is it's no longer needing to fight language. For the first time, we have to kind of, language is a jacket we're wearing, or it's a mask we're wearing. We got to take these masks and attempt to live as raw human beings. And when I say raw, not savage, because you see, the mind has an incredible potential. Like, the whole word cosmos means order. Literally, your mind is here to give order to chaos, and we're calling that order knowledge. That's it. Aside from that, we're just 8 billion creatures on a rock in the middle of nowhere, playfully generating noises and movements. You know? It's all about a sort of, I was speaking about relativism in a previous talk. It's about like the relativism you bring to the moment. Right? You can think of, like, you can literally look at a bird and be like, okay, bird, just in your own mind, you can just say poetically, hilariously, you know, all right, bird, I did this when I was younger, very young, like maybe 15 or something, where I looked at a bird and I was like, all right, if this bird moves its head left, it's a yes. If it moves its head right, it's a no. Then I stared at the bird and I asked the question, and the bird's head moved left, and I was like, I got an answer. But you see, it was the relativism I had imposed on the moment. The bird was just moving its head randomly. Do you see? So we are imposing order. We are putting order into a position. And I think this is the difference between people who are truly independent and people who, their knowing is dependent on a system. For me, there is always an unknown witnessing component to sight. That's why I designed the language, the phrase, the language threshold. The language threshold is where we can't talk about it anymore. It's beyond dualistic uh, range of classification. People feel life is just, I'll be honest, good and bad. I personally perceive there is three other dimensions missing out of the picture. Technically, there's four dimensions that any being, conscious being, self-aware being, requires to pilot in this plane of existence. To notice these and learn, somehow cultivate these as insights from your realm. Okay, one is to attain an insight on I call it the zero dimension. This is, the whole model is called Ring of the Absent Heaven. The zero dimension, and there's a reason I call it a ring. I'll tell you why. The zero dimension is space. So you, as an intelligent phenomenon, need to notice space. Look at space. Just go look at an empty place, empty whatever. You know, go look at an empty cup and notice space. Notice how there requires to be space before any type of movement. That means find contentment with the void. This, anybody who does this, it is an incredible, it makes piloting here very smooth. So the zero dimension. Then I say the one dimension. This is anything that's singular. Going from you being able, after noticing space, what's in the space, stuff. You notice singular phenomena, from objects to letters to different colors, everything that can be something on its own individually. You can say from a mystical concept, you could say even the oneness of the cosmos is like fits into that dimension. Then from 0, 1, we have the dual dimension, the two dimension. This means after you have noticed zero, space, and singular phenomena, now there is one phenomena with an additional. Just like how we have 1 plus 1 equals 2, that means that there's in the void, the 0 and 1 becomes, how do I say it? Pretty much, you need 2 points of reference to have duality in order to have a movement that can be seen as good or bad. The two dimension is where language is occurring. Every concept, every idea, everything is dualistic. Anybody who realizes this quickly will realize speech is a coin. It's an endlessly spinning coin in the air. Now, duality is where everything is, and duality is where the cycle of karma is happening. Reincarnation is happening in the dualistic dimension. That's the nature of the dualistic dimension. Chaos and order, like these two dragons spiraling around one another, going towards like towards the edge of the sky. It's kind of like that. Chaos and order, dualistic dimension. So once you realize, once you are comfortable seeing this dualistic axis in anywhere and anything, the next thing, now this is where it gets very interesting. The fourth dimension is, I call it the infinite. That means I'm using like going from 0, 1, 2, and people would say, Mr. Within, isn't it 3 after? And I'll be like, no. After you have 2, you can have infinity. You just need duality. You just need one way, one mode life is, then you can see endless echoes of it. Endless parallels to it. I say it like this, where singularity is the mother of duality, and duality is the father of infinity. And infinity, so what does that mean? That means you look at it, that it's like if we are in the two dimension, there's the one dimension, we're sandwiched between the one dimension, and we're sandwiched between the infinite. Now, when I say it's a ring, it's cyclical. So after infinity, it goes back to 0. So that means if there was matrix codes on this world of ours, it would be like 0, 1, 2, infinity, 0, 1, 2, infinity. Do you see what I mean? So what I'm trying to say is there's two ways out of duality, either through the singular void or through the infinite void. And once the person realizes the void, there is no birth or death. So once the whole cycle is complete, then the person is fully able to pilot. They've done the journey once. And pretty much humanity's calling is just ushering people to do things that they have never done before. That is the point of it. This world doesn't need followers. It's a waste of time. We need 8 billion leaders, leaders of their inner realms, and then out of the care for what the potential of the outer realms. That means, imagine your Einstein had to go give a speech and he was late, and you are a bunch of, let's say uh, me and all the people, the 4 people listening to this right now. Let's say we are like scientists, like uh, we are like physicist students, you know. And so we see Albert Einstein has to run and go give this important speech. Now there's a bunch of hooligans who want to rob Albert Einstein when Albert Einstein is running. And so suddenly, in that moment, imagine we go like these physics students and we're like, Einstein, run and give your speech. We'll take care of these guys, you know? And we'll be like, Einstein, go and give your speech. We'll use the laws of science to like take care of these guys, you know? This is a hypothetical situation, by the way. And so Einstein's like, all right, good luck, guys. I'm going to go give the speech. Einstein runs. And then we see these hooligans looking at us with knives and chains. And we're like, well, let us show you the power of science. Somebody takes out a gun. They run away. You know what I mean? Let's say it was like one of some, like in the story, there was like someone there was part of security or something. I'm just trying to tell you the notion of like, I don't know, some things, they are worth happening without being disturbed. As if like a person may cut one tree to want, for example, like some firewood, but to cut down the whole forest is like a mistake. What it is just pretty much people have to look at systems very neutrally, look at how the system is working, identify the design, notice the design of the problem, look at the design of the problem from different angles until there is a probability of a good enough solution to attempt. And this is life. You pretty much attempt something, and I would tell you it's the best analogy. This is my personal favorite analogy. In certain movies, you see it, it's like it's the general's tent. That generals in battle, they would in some sense strategize in this proper headquarters. It was like this kind of, do you know what I'm saying? Like your mind is your general's tent and your attention is the general. And you can strategize before actually moving and implementing things, but you can have a strategy, then go into the battlefield without a strategy, look at heaven and earth, and when there is time, implement the strategy. When it's time, the balance between heaven and earth. That means sometimes it's not about just knowing what to do, it's about knowing when to do what to do. I feel there are many people on the planet where if they feel their outer realms are going too slow, they can choose to compensate by speeding up the inner realms. But the issue is we have to speed up the outer realms. I believe the civilization should be moving much faster. Everything can be way faster because that's what the future demands. In the future we will have excellent or we will have excellence in speed, excellence in multidimensional navigation of our attention. Right now it's like we're just trying to the teachers like pay attention in class, but in the future people will never say pay attention. You will realize we have always been attention. It's pilot your attention. you know it's the most purest, the most, I would say, blessed and divine archetype for the future. It's the one archetype that I will tell you, I have put a lot of thought into this. It's the one archetype that will survive. It is the most necessary archetype, the pilot of consciousness. That means I noticed something very unique, that we have pilots, like actual airplane pilots, but when you think about the mind, technically you are piloting your attention as a plane of existence. So as you remember this, as you get acquainted to your nature, the skill orients to the ability of the mind's projection. So how your mind puts things forth, uh, it's like, I don't know, it's like after you see those four dimensions I was talking about, and the infinite dimension, how to explain it would be things are moving and updating and advancing so fast it's inconceivable. That means, like, this is the other side of the coin, where in building an advanced civilization, the most advanced civilization is we can't actually see it because it's advancing so quick. That means a system that instantly we fix Earth. And the strategy is, I mean, I'm going to share it here. This is Mr. Within's strategy to bypass extinction indefinitely on this planet. If everything else went all right in regards to inner extinction, like people's behaviors and whatnot, I would say the idea is we live in the sky. We go live in sky cities for 2,000 years, and we recover the earth. So the way I've said it is that civilization 2.0, the first phase is to build sky cities, design sky cities. That should become the most important technology. Phase two, the heavenized earth, earth heavena. In phase two, we have to, in some sense, imagine, like, I don't know, I perceive this potentially maybe happening in 600 years, where suddenly the person just sees all human infrastructure on the surface of the earth lifts up into the sky, and for the first time, there is no borders. All nations have lifted up to the sky, or hopefully by then we have discovered all nations have become sub-nations of the advanced nation, you know. So while we're living in the sky, we start the greatest botany project, and pretty much we make the earth as if it wasn't inhabited by humans. We make earth into an uninhabited paradise, like botanists doing the most incredible, like, plant projects, different species thriving, you know, no longer human behavior. And you know why it makes sense to go live in the sky? Because we're going towards cyberspace anyways. People are getting tired living as just bodies. I'm telling you, it's the strange trend we're seeing, because the mind is moving so much faster than the body can satisfy, that eventually we are either going to have suits, that robotic suits that move very fast, or in some sense we're going to want to change it, transfer our consciousness to bodies that are way more faster, or maybe close our eyes, not live as a biological body, but experience a cyberspace reality, you know. The strange thing is cyberspace has souls in it. You know, that means the notion is that there is something outside of the natural is like the soul of the unnatural, you know? Phase three would be a decision, because I thought we've never had a self-aware civilization. So if this strategy, this model I'm proposing is implemented, and I'm just sharing a model here, a strategy. So if the third phase would be, we have a choice to return to Earth, or we would be so inspired for the interstellar that we would move on to phase four. That means either we have a choice to advance. Excuse me, I forgot to mention. There is that choice to go back on Earth, but there's also this option of either we choose to stop being concepts, we advance beyond the language threshold, or we choose to endlessly till the end of time, in an interstellar way, humanize the whole universe till the end of time. What else can a biological organism do? Just replicate the pattern and endlessly build. So what that would, phase four, I don't know what I called it, but the way I saw it was that pretty much AI is gonna go. Imagine these AI has become like man's best friend. You know, first it was the dog, but then in the future it's going to be AI. You know. I think the best prototype AI friend for future children and the future generations would be like maybe animals in astronaut suits. But it's just an AI program simulating that form to the to let's say the child, so it's engageable. But anyways, the point was with phase four, AI is going all around the universe, building civilizations, and the purpose of life becomes just live like gods and have sex till the end of time. That's because that's gonna pretty much we're gonna become, um, we're either gonna have sex till the end of time, or we're gonna like populate the whole universe. We're gonna, human beings are gonna be everywhere, or human beings will literally move beyond the conceivable. They will evolve towards the inconceivable, and there is no other order. Actually, it's those two. We either stop being subjects, or we endure as objects and subjects with a strange perfection to the past, if the past was looking at it. For me, when I see this character, it honestly, this character in this picture, I mean, aside from the beauty of the appearance, I would say it's like a person employed by greater lights. Literally, it's like she has a galactic uh, um, uh, aim in her mind. You know, the galaxy has become like our backyard. I hope to see that day. I hope to see endless poets on earth looking at the stars, and the poetry is no longer like just about, oh, stars are beautiful, nice, they shine. The poetry is about how we're going to be in the stars. I will tell you, one of the most biggest catalysts for me was I actually had a dream which inspired me to write this book called Building a Highway of Stars or something. I don't remember the exact name, but it had the highway of stars in it. And in a dream, guys, I'm not joking. In a dream, I was just looking at the sky. I couldn't even know how I looked like. In the dream, I saw the sky, and you know how we see stars at night? Imagine I saw a line of stars moving. That's what the highway of stars is going to look like. In the future, when there's going to be interstellar movement of ships in our atmosphere, we're going to look at the sky and we're going to see this highway. That would be the safest way for extraterrestrial contact, where we see that it's like a highway has been made in our sky, and we're like, what's that highway? You know? So, of course, Civilization 2.0 is the fruition of the beautiful prophecy. I honestly feel like I was born to kind of give life to the idea of the castle in the sky again. Now that's a strategy. Now, where the human being, even in my book, I'm writing a book on this. It's not complete, but I'll tell you. In the book at the beginning, I say there's certain great transformations that if certain things transform and they get to this phase, then it's worth building a sky city. You know, that means we have to earn our right to be an advanced civilization. That means, Rumi has this poem where he says, you have to work in the invisible realms as hard as you work in the visible. I'll tell you, it's like you have to work for the collective as hard as you work for the individual. And that's how an advanced civilization gets built. When the creature realizes, sure, there is the individual life, but what else is there? You know, that means imagine everything you wanted to do individually, you had instantly done them. Just instantly you had done them. Imagine this is the moment after all of your desires have been satisfied. What's the next moment? Do you see that there's this space of endless processing of scenery? And the scenery echoes internally. What the mind is doing is the clue is from the self-replicating gene. We say we're self-replicating genes, right? We're genetical behavior gone so wild that now we are like, you know, everybody has a DNA. It's like their voice is like a microphone given to the DNA. So this self-replicating pattern is the greatest clue in evolution, because it's suggesting that what if there is something similar occurring where the physical realm is replicating itself, as if the whole universe is a gene that's self-replicating. But and that self-replication is the subtlety of how the mind sees the world, and like copy paste in Photoshop, in your inner realms you can calculate things, see probabilities of things. And this self-replication, but at first it's unconscious, then it reaches a complexity where it can be conscious, and after it is conscious, again it seems to be self-replicating again to higher goals. So what it is we are temporary creatures in a system designed actually endlessly to know. It's remarkable. The world is designed to be around for so long, but we are here for such a little while. And so it's like, who was this world made for? Do you know what I mean? That's an incredible question. Sometimes I feel, what if object-based human life and everything that we're considering a dimension of the physical is just the tip of the iceberg? And some people are saying, hey, the deeper parts of the art iceberg based on this book look like this. And there's some people saying, no, there's only the tip of the iceberg. Don't ask questions. And I'm like, what is this? Has really power made us stupid? I think here's the thing. Individual power that takes, is so stupid that it's not power. It's just us. Do you know what I mean? I think there's a scene in Spider-Man that should have gone like this. It should have gone like this, where Uncle Ben is like on the ground in Spider-Man after being shot, and he's looking at Peter, and he's like, with great power comes great responsibility. That's honestly such a genius thing to do in your last breath. Just give wisdom away and just pass away. But I think how it should have gone was, Uncle Ben was like, with great power comes great, what did he say? With great power comes great responsibility. Uncle Ben should have, and Peter's like, Spider Man's like, no, Uncle Ben, tearing up, and he's like, with great power comes great responsibility. Now call me an ambulance, you dumbass. Like, what are you doing? What are you doing staring at me crying? Like, take me to the hospital. It's like, that's another way of Uncle Ben saying, help me, fool. With great power comes great responsibility. But I think that was the point, right? That if you are not responsible with power, you don't understand what you have. So it doesn't matter if you have it or not. So your karma is most likely going to be shaky. And the cool thing is, people can change their mind instantly. All the cruelest people, all the power hungry people can just be like, wait a minute, there's another way to look at things? Oh my God. And it becomes as simple as that. If we can find a way we can look at things, I honestly feel like I understood this from, I could say this is a cool thing you find like Eastern countries. Me personally, my background's from Iran. I saw this in Iran, where I went to a bazaar with my father, and I was very young, like, I don't know, around 15, let's say, or something. You know, it's not too young, but around 15. And my father took me and my brother to this bazaar where they were selling rings. And in Iran, they have in their culture, like, wearing rings with stones is like part of like bling of like the civilized of the culture, you know. So anyways, so we go to this bazaar. Imagine like an Indian spice market. It's just one narrow hallway with endless stores selling the same kinds of rings with different patterns. And so we choose this one store. We go there, and I remember me and my brother are watching my father bargain. And so my father was like expert. I can tell you, like it was, and it was something where it's the whole point of bargaining is you just become friends with the person, then you come to a reasonable solution, and you know that's like, here's the thing. It's like when you, it's they say this. It's like it's much easier to speak to a friend, right? So it's like at first the people are intentionally being obnoxious, and then they become suddenly super friendly. Then they become real, you know. I feel this may be a strange algorithm, but I feel any person who listens to someone for has 10 conversations with someone without caring for anything, not without caring, not having any opinion on what they say, just seeing who they are, after 10 conversations, I would say the person's mind would be revealed who they are, you know. The body naturally heals itself. The mind naturally heals itself, aligns itself. And it's a geometrical universe for now. I feel like the universe, the multiverse, those are 2 out of 4 of the dimensions of what's actually going on here, what's able. You know, that means I would say there are beings that are minds without bodies. I totally consider this. You think it's like this universe has created an individual beings, it hasn't had the creativity to create collective beings? You know, be grateful for how your attention has been crafted through the eons to be here now. You have arrived to the grand stage. Regardless of what narrative, those who are employed by greater lights beyond the horizon, you are seeing so many steps ahead that humanity's advancement is the first. Building an advanced civilization is just just warming up. I'm telling you. There's so many ways I can see probabilities of how civilization can move. It's like every day you observe how you are living as a person, and it's like also now that requires the person to observe how they are being and how their world is being. That means it's like people are not caring, for example, for politics, but it's one of the privileges of being a conscious being, you know. So a lot of things, and the issue is because human desire, there was somebody once said this, a lot of ideologies, they start off being good, but the issue is human nature hasn't evolved to the decency to go along with the ideology. And even Friedrich Nietzsche has said, in fighting a monster you have to be careful not to become the monster. And you know what that means? That means seeing no monster from the beginning. You see a monster, it's inevitably in your perception. It's like in Zen they say, um, if you want to climb the mountain, start at the top. What that means is if in this life you want to do anything, wonder about what's the greatest way it can happen, then attempt it. And it's sometimes fun when a person takes their time to find their own pace. When you find your own pace, you can suddenly notice your inner realm rhythms, you know? The mind is like a film. And beliefs and ideologies and even my voice right now, these are snapshots. And it's this massive river that we're all a part of. And the ocean is the advanced civilization. So humanity's calling is, what's the greatest game we can play on a rock in the middle of nowhere? 8 billion creatures can play on a rock in the middle of nowhere. Build an advanced civilization. What greater glory? That is the potential of humanhood, human life. To see what's the greatest thing we can do here. Rather than there should be fear, every person should see fear as feedback. Everything is information. There is technically success and failure is based on how you look at it. If you look towards the past, you can see success in anything. You know? If you look to the future, you will always feel behind. And both of them are okay. They're just states of mind you navigate through. For me, I would just like to see another renaissance. A multi-dimensional renaissance, I've called it, where 8 billion human beings, they're like, okay, we get it. We're on a rock in the middle of nowhere. We have minds, strangely, compared to all the other species on this planet that could process information, that could create, that could share, and people feel they're not creative. You know? It's madness. It's madness to think that we were never artists from the beginning. Life is nature's artwork, is it not? Call it God, call it the forces of whatever. See it as a weak force, strong force, electromagnetic, gravitational, like whatever way you entertain. Nature is an event. It's like we get a chance to be on the shoulder of a giant. And people are acting like giants when we're on the shoulder of a giant. Don't make us laugh. There is nothing to hold on here. I'm telling you. Like it's like every moment I feel it. I'm like, what is this? Is dream states? Is deep sleep preparing me for the ultimate um the ultimate ejection from the plane, or landing of the plane into a new type of attention? For me, it's like how the attention is walking in the moment. How is it being? And if you can accept your being, then I feel true intelligence shows its face. Then you can do anything. And by anything, I mean like the potential is there. The inner realms can instantly act like a god. But the outer realms is going in accordance to its own program. So the best thing we can do is try to communicate to the shoulder of this giant we're on, this field of attributeless witnessing intelligence behind everybody's ego. As we go within, the nature of what is without becomes clear. And I will read one last poem to end off. This poem is called Speculations of Stardust. Starlight Sanctuaries is the poetic work where this is a poem of. Is the dust on your cosmic shoulder giving a silent sermon? What invites a grace beyond words? Is there a door to this party? You may choose the crowd, but the crowd may never choose you. Every moment is a respectful entrance through all angles in 1 degree. Every change is a changeless glance. How does the world find the turn of the century? Every change is changeless glance. just to be true to how it's written. How does the world find the turn of the century? What if the planet got tired and wanted to quit its job? Do not hate routine, rather recreate novelty. A blessing for the wise. These words can never touch the truth in your eyes. For all fingers belong to the palm of the only one. Be free. Let us learn. From the sky. Thanks for listening, everyone. Much blessings and namaste. Have a great day.